Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today and happy holidays. We have an exciting class today. Really, for the condominium buildings out there, we have understanding elevator maintenance and modernization for condo board members and property managers. And presenting today is the president of the company. We have Lucas Kairdolf. I'm Peggy West. I'm your event organizer and planner. Uh, Wanted to go over some housekeeping real quick. First of all, we are going to hold questions till the end of the class, just so that you know. And if we don't get all the questions answered by chance, we will send them over to uh, Mr. Kairdolf. He will answer them personally and send those out following. So the Q&A is always recorded. I mentioned that because I want you to put your questions into the Q&A, not into the chat box. And this way, we can make sure they're recorded correctly. So the whole class will be recorded and sent out following with the sponsor sheet of everybody's contact information. And I just wanted to tell you that the CAMS, this is a 1-hour CEU course credit. So all this will be sent out to you within about 14 days. Well, actually posted to the DBPR. With that, I want to go into our sponsor introductions. I want to thank all the sponsors today for being a part of this class. I'm going to start with Vinteum Software. Today we have the spokeswomen. We have Juliana Franca. Juliana, tell us about the company, what you do.
Hi, everyone. So, my name is Julia, and I'm the marketing specialist here at Vinteum. We are a company that specializes in providing services and an all-in-one software for HOAs, condos, cooperatives, property management companies, as well as property managers. And as many of you know, according to Florida law, associations with 25 or more units will be legally required to have a website with a residence portal, and as well as a safe space to store important community documents, and especially somewhere where communication actually works with residents and keeps them engaged and gets the message across. And we at Vintium provide all of that for you. So we built the website, we set up the residence information for you, and we make sure everything is organized and compliant to the law. So as we approach the end of November, I just want to remind you guys that we're running a Black November offer, and you can get a great discount and save a little bit of your community budget. And for any property managers out there, we have a really good updated pricing structure for you guys if you decide to partner with us. So that's it. I'll send our information in the chat. So please reach out if you have any questions or if you want to learn more about us. And thank you, everyone. I hope we have a great webinar. And back to you, Peggy.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. Next, I want to introduce today's moderator, Siobhan Gonzalez. She's with United Professional Engineering. Siobhan, tell us about yourself and what you're doing over there, and how are these proposals coming in for all these jobs?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Peggy. Season's greetings. We're excited for Thanksgiving, so happy holidays to everyone. Thanks for sharing this time with us. Yes, my name is Siobhan. I am the business developer here at United Professional Engineering. We are a full-service structural engineering firm. We've been serving South Florida and condominiums for over 20 years. Set apart, our president and owner, Carmelo Giglio, is the standing president of the Florida Structural Engineers Association. We take pride in educating and empowering communities and associations. We understand that there's still so many questions around engineering and compliance, and we want to be that resource for you. So just know that if you have an engineering question, just call me. We're here to help. We serve your condominium and your association completely, from special inspections, milestone, phase 1, phase 2, recertification, concrete restoration and repair, pool decks, painting projects, garages, you name it, we're here to serve you. We are offering a complimentary consultation. Another important thing to note is that part of our engineering services is we include construction administration. So that means you don't need a project manager with us because we offer that built into our engineering services. So happy holidays to everyone. We're here to help. If you have any questions, my information will be below. I look forward to moderating today's webinar and learning more about elevators.
Yes, thank you so much. All right. Next, I want to introduce Jamie Gelfand. She's with First Citizens Bank. Jamie, tell us about yourself and what you're doing for the industry.
Thanks, Peggy. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamie Gelfand. I'm the Regional Sales Officer at First Citizens Bank. First Citizens is a 125-year-old top 20 bank. In the CAB Community Association Banking Division, we provide lockbox, loans, and FDIC protection to associations. We integrate through API with over 20 software. As you're working on your milestones or your budget for 26 and are looking to see how are you going to do financing for all of these projects, the differentiator on our loans is we do not charge an origination fee, and we do not require you to move your banking relationship. So we are able to assist you just on the loan perspective. Also FDIC protection through ICS and CDARS. If I can be of any assistance, I'm going to put my information in the chat. Hope you enjoyed today's class and have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So they are ready for you for all these projects. Next, I want to introduce the broker for and founder and owner of COA Solutions, Daniel Baum. Daniel, please tell us what you're doing.
Thanks, Peg. Hi, everyone. You probably heard me say this before, but I like to repeat it. My job is to help you and your associations find ways to reduce the cost of your property and casualty insurance. It's been a great year for the insurance space as far as the associations are concerned. Premiums have come down. Thank God we had a very quiet hurricane season, although that's not what they expected, but we're very glad that it happened that way. Most of you should have seen reductions, if not all of you, in your property coverage. If you didn't, you should probably be questioning that. We're going into a season where there's a lot more competition. There's a lot more carriers out there. Quite a few communities renew on that December 31 deadline. If you're coming up for renewal in December and your agent's not telling you to expect some degree of a reduction, I strongly recommend you get another opinion or bringing another agent to take a look at your policies and see what alternatives are out there. Because there's not a single one of my customers who went up in premium this year. Most went down, a few stayed the same, but there's really no reason to see any kind of an increase. I do offer a complimentary review of your policies. There's nothing to sign, no broker of record letters or anything like that. If you wanted me to take a look and just give you my opinion, I'd be happy to do so. I'll put my information in the chat. You can find me on my website. As was iterated by others, I want to wish everyone a wonderful, happy, and healthy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a terrific time with your family, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. Next, we're going to drop down on the agenda to Ruthie from Kaiser Air Conditioning. Ruthie, tell us about what you're doing over there. I know you've been there a few months now, and how's it going?
Thank you so much, Peggy. As always, we appreciate you, and thanks, Siobhan, for moderating today. I am Ruthie, the Director of Marketing over at Kaiser Air Conditioning. And more than anything, we always like to emphasize that we have been in business for 20 years and we are locally owned and operated. So you get that local accountability and local point of contact, human beings that you can actually connect with if you need something related to HVAC. We serve Palm Beach, Broward, Martin, and St. Lucie counties. So really just going into the holiday week, if you have residents or if you have any HVAC needs for your property, we can service commercial units and we can be there for your residents so that they have, cool air while people are visiting, and over the holiday season, you have someone that you can call and that you can rely on if you have an emergency. So just want to put that out there specifically for this week. Obviously, we do anything related to HVAC, maintenance, general repairs. We can do replacements. We're just here to support you and your communities however we can. So I'll leave my information in the chat box. And again, hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks again, Peggy. And we'll see you guys after the holidays.
All right, sounds great. Okay, so it sounds like cool air and hot turkey, right?
Yes.
All right, next I want to introduce Dylan Pena. He is with PD Concrete, and I want to mention his father, the owner, is Daniel Pena, outstanding company in the area. So Dylan, tell us about yourself and your projects. What's going on over there?
Thank you very much, Peggy. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Dylan. I'm the business developer for PD Concrete Specialist. We've been in business for over 21 years. We specialize in concrete restoration, waterproofing, and post-tension cable repair. We also assist with the 40, 50, 60-year recertification process to ensure your property remains compliant and safe. One thing that sets us apart, though, is that we do not use subcontractors. We only use our in-house employees to ensure accountability and quality work for every step of the way. We are locally based and owned. Now, we have 2 offices, one in West Palm Beach and one in Aventura. I'll leave my information in the chat box below. Have a happy weekend, everyone. Happy holiday week and Thanksgiving and Black Friday as well. Thank you very much, Peggy.
Welcome, absolutely. And they are licensed, bonded, and insured. So great company to partner with. All right, next I'm going to drop down to Brooke Cavender from Southwest Elevator. Brooke, tell us about yourself, what you're doing, and your company.
Thanks, Peggy. Yeah, I am Brooke Cavender. I'm the sales manager at Southwest Elevator for the state of Florida. We are a family-owned and operated union elevator company that specializes in maintenance, repair, and modernization. I sit in the South Florida office, which is Jupiter all the way down to Cutler Bay area. We have an office in Naples, Fort Myers area, an office in Orlando, and then we just opened our office in Tampa Bay, Sarasota area. So any elevator needs you would need in any of those markets, we would be happy to come out and give you a quote on. And I will drop my info in the chat box, and I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, next I want to introduce Shawnee Haas. She's with Munyon Contractors. Shawnee, tell us about yourself and what is Munyon doing these days?
Thank you, Peggy. Hi, I'm Shawnee Haas, the marketing manager at Munyon Painting. For 75 years now, we've proudly served communities all across Florida with high quality interior and exterior painting for residential associations, high rises, and commercial properties. We know that it's budget season going into 2026, and because of that, we do offer a free estimate service if you'd like us to come out and take a look at any properties or projects that you plan on doing going into the new year. Other than that, happy holidays and thank you for coming to the webinar.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shawnee, and hello to everybody at the Tampa office. Next, I want to introduce, I believe she's on. Yes, there's Diana Alert from Best Roofing. Diana, tell us about yourself and what you're doing at Best Roofing these days.
Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. And happy early Thanksgiving, I guess. I'm the director of business development at Best Roofing. Best Roofing is being in marketing. Well, it's been in business. I'm sorry, for 47 years, and we cover Florida. We do absolutely everything. And if you need anything, even from a simple question, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to help you. Our main point is to educate everybody, be sure they make the right decision. We want to be your roofing partner, and come to us even for like little things like a maintenance program, a repair, or a big project like a high-rise industrial. We do absolutely anything and everything, and we'll be more than happy to help you, guide you, and be there for one of the most important decisions on your building and the most costly way. So please keep my information. I'm going to put it on the chat, and I'll be sure to help you whenever you need it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Very nice. Okay, great. All right. So now I'm going to just make mention of the sponsors that are not on today. They are involved behind the scenes before these webinars by inviting people. So I'm going to start with Faster.io. Bob Aleka is the rep. He's the vice president, actually, for community services. He will be on the sponsor sheet with this content.
Peggy, are you there?
I think we lost her.
Yeah, Siobhan, I think you and Lucas can get going.
Sure. All right. Hi, everyone. So yeah, there seems to be some sort of technical difficulty. I'm sure Peggy will jump on back in any minute. She was in the middle of introducing the other sponsors. That's okay if you didn't get to hear all of it. They will be on the sponsor sheet. So after the webinar, you'll get a sponsor sheet with everyone's information. I would like to go ahead and actually turn this over to Damaris, is the business developer. And Damaris, go ahead and introduce yourself and the company, please.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you, everybody, thank you for moderating. And yes, good morning, everybody. I'm honored to present Clarkson and Varick. We are an independent national elevator consulting firm dedicated exclusively to one thing: protecting buildings through expert elevator guidance. We are not contractors. We don't perform the service. We are 100% consultants. Our role is to provide unbiased advice to the owners, to the property managers, is to provide unbiased oversight. We assist on reviewing maintenance performance, managing the projects themselves, the modernization projects, developing long-term capital plans, guiding boards through these complex decisions, this decision-making process, bringing clarity and confidence. So elevators are often one of the most expensive assets in the buildings, and yet they're the least understood. So today is about changing that. Whether you're a property manager, board member, or an industry professional that wants to understand better the life cycle of the elevators and everything that goes with it, this is going to happen today. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lucas Kairdolf. He's our CEO and senior consultant who brings field experience and technical insight into the maintenance and modernization project. So, Lucas?
Great. Thanks, Damaris. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So, we really developed this class because it's just, we found that there's a real need for an understanding of what elevator companies do, what they don't do, why you need a company, basic understanding of elevators, and what are the kind of tips and tricks in managing a property to maximize the benefit of your elevator company, increase your ability to communicate and understand with them. So we're going to kind of take you through, different aspects of how property managers and owners interact with elevator companies and what we can do to help maybe better educate you in that process. We've got Damaris kind of led with us. We're a consultant. We're not a contractor. We're an independent owner's representation. We do everything from engineering to design, capital planning, maintenance evaluation, contract management across the board. So there's a little confusion sometimes because we're not actually a contractor. We don't work on elevators. We advise you as an expert in the field on how to manage your elevators and your company. We'll just get right into it. So, every property has to have an elevator maintenance contract. And you say, well, why do I need an elevator maintenance contract? Well, first of all, it's required by code. Okay. The code dictates that if you are maintaining a piece of equipment, an elevator, you have to have a service company that is testing within what's required by the code, that you're maintaining that piece of equipment and that it's safe. And one of the issues that we run into that and people don't understand is that, elevators are for the public to use. Okay. So it's not like somebody, goes and gets in your car and you haven't changed the oil in, 2 years and then it blows up. Well, that's a private mode of transportation. Elevators are a public mode of transportation. So it's important for the public safety that they're maintained up to code. Elevators, fun fact, elevators move more people, more distance than any other mode of transportation in the world. Trains, planes, automobiles, more distance, more distance traveled in elevators than any other mode of transportation. And people don't really consider it a mode of transportation, but it is. Like I said, it's required by code. Every state jurisdiction, Florida is one of the states that has a uniform elevator code. So it's dictated by the state. There are different jurisdictions, but as far as the code for New York I mean, for Florida, the state of Florida, it's uniform across the board. You just may have different jurisdictions as far as the elevator licensing bureau, but it is uniform in the state of Florida. Uptime. This is the biggest thing, the biggest complaint. You probably hear it all the time. The elevators are always broken. There's always a problem. Tenants are complaining. You know, that maintenance contract, if the elevator contractor is doing what they're supposed to do, that exactly is why you have a maintenance program so that we can increase uptime. And the last piece is asset longevity. Okay. Elevators are expensive. It's a lot of money. The more and the better that you maintain that elevator, the longer you're going to extend that life and you're going to get more money out of your asset before it comes time for an upgrade. So those are the basics of why we need a maintenance contract and understanding why that's required. I want to take a few minutes and just explain some basics about elevators. We're not going to get into too much crazy detail. And I'm sure a lot of you will have experience and will have understood. I've heard this term before. I haven't heard this term before. But I just kind of want to walk you through the basic types of elevators so we have an understanding. Okay. So there's basically two types of elevators. There's what's called an hydraulic elevator and a traction elevator. And I've got a picture of each on the side here. So a hydraulic elevator is typically only able to go up to about 8 stops, and it works off a hydraulic system. So if you look here on this, let's see if I can zoom in here. Let's go back here. Okay, so this is an example of a hydraulic system. So there is some sort of hydraulic jack, whether it be, this is an example of what's called a hold hydro. So the jack is actually drilled out and buried in the ground. And what it does is it uses a pump and a motor and it forces hydraulic fluid into a hydraulic line, which pressurizes, and that's what actually raises the elevator. So as far as the elevator rise is how far this jack goes down in the ground. And they do have other types. They call them telescoping jacks. So it's a jack inside of a jack. It's kind of like an antenna when you pull it out. There are multiple pieces. But the way this system works is it pumps hydraulic fluid, raises the elevator, and then it uses gravity to lower it. So it controls the flow rate of the oil for the elevator lower. This is a pretty simple system. There are issues that come in it. You know, the older the unit is, the technology has changed in how they deal with the jacks. Some of you may have had to deal with jack replacements over the years, which can be costly and expensive. You know, especially in South Florida, the water table is really low. And when you have metal buried in the ground, metal and water don't mix very well. So it can become a problem over the years. There are new innovations within that. You know, when we do jack replacements, we're going to do a PVC line jack that protects it from the elements. But typically, these units are a pretty simple system to maintain and operate. We'll talk more about the maintenance of that. You know, a lot of the elevator maintenance companies don't do as much maintenance on these units because they don't break as much or they have less moving parts. So it's something to be mindful of, you know, when we start talking about maintenance contracts and service and what that looks like. The other type of elevator we're talking about is called a traction elevator. Okay. So this is generally like 6 stops and up. Okay. And this is what we have on the right here. So a traction elevator has an elevator machine, and this is like typically what we would think of elevators with hoist cables and a machine that goes up and down. So I just want to show you some of the components within this diagram. So this is what's called a geared traction machine. You have a motor, okay, that turns a worm gear, which turns a spider gear, which turns this thing. And most of you would think this is what's called a pulley. In the industry, we call this a shiv or a drive shiv, okay? So this is actually what turns the cables. So within a traction elevator, this is your sling and platform here. So this is where the cab is built inside of. And on the other side of this machine, you have what's called a counterweight. So this is counterbalance. It works like a seesaw. So when the elevator turns, it raises it up. Okay, the counterweights go down, the car goes up. When it goes down, the counterweights go up and the car goes down. This is typically for, you know, higher speed, higher rise buildings. We're really moving away from this is what's called a geared machine to a gearless machine where the shiv is actually mounted on the motor and you don't have the gear ratio that's working There's less maintenance on a geared machine because you only have two sets of bearings, whereas on a geared machine you have two sets of bearings for the motor, you have two sets of bearings for the worm gear, and then you have two sets of bearings for the spider gear. So it's reducing the bearings by four. Another component on this diagram I want to bring attention to because maybe you guys have heard this before. This is what's called a governor. Okay. If you know what a governor is in a car or in anything else, a governor controls the speed. So this is your safety mechanism device on a traction elevator. Quickly, there's weights inside of this governor that use a centrifugal force and they spin out and it will set the safety on the elevator. So this rope pulls up and sets the brakes on the elevator if it travels in the down direction too fast. Okay, so that's it's kind of a real 30,000-foot view of a traction elevator, what it looks like. We're going to kind of get into more detail in that one further in the presentation, but those are the basic two types of elevators. Now we have a bunch of other elevators that we deal with. I know that a lot of this is maybe residential, so we maybe not deal with handicap lifts as much or freight elevators. Freight elevators are the big biparting doors. We have what's called a Lula, which some of you may have in your properties. It's called a light use, light application elevator. Then we have residential elevators, and I would assume that most people are not really dealing with escalators. That's more of a commercial application. So let's talk about understanding maintenance service agreements. So we're going to go through the different types of agreements, why we have them, why the terms are what they are, and what we need to look out for. So we kind of break these down into three basic types of agreements that you're going to see from an elevator contractor. And when we think of our maintenance agreement, it's a service plan. Okay. So any service plan that you have, you're going to have different levels of coverages. It may be labor only. It may be just us respond, or we're going to include some labor and some parts. Okay. You need to have a relationship with your elevator contractor because this is an ongoing thing. You got to have somebody you can call at midnight. If somebody's stuck in an elevator, you need somebody to respond. So that's why we have a service agreement. If you just call a random company at midnight, they're not likely to show up. But if you have a service agreement where they're contractually obligated to respond, then that's the kind of situation that we need. So the things that we want to look out for. So the most basic type of contract that we see is what we call an oil and grease. Okay. And what that means is the elevator company is going to come out. They're going to lubricate. They're going to adjust any components that need to be adjusted. They're probably going to do a visual inspection, but anything outside of that, you're getting a bill for. Okay. Typically, a company is gonna push this on a piece of equipment that's maybe totally outdated or needs to be modernized or is out of really the ability for them to maintain it to a standard. So it's important to know what those terms are in that agreement. You're going to see massive additional billing from a contract like this. Anytime something goes wrong, even if they have to replace a small part, you're going to end up having to pay for that. The next is what we call like a partial parts coverage. So they're going to include, small parts, generally parts that cost less than $100, a relay, a contact, or whatever. You place a service call, they come out, they're going to replace that part. It's going to be included in the contract. But any major repairs above that, you're going to end up getting a bill for, and those can be extremely costly. So, it's almost like insurance. So, the higher risk of the elevator, the more you're going to pay for more coverage because it's exposure on the elevator company from their perspective. You sign a new elevator company, they come in, you say, I want you to cover the hoist cables. And they say, well, listen, these hoist cables are already bad. They're going to go bad within the next 2 years. They're not going to honor that or cover that because there's no maintenance to be done on that. They need to be replaced. So that's their perspective from looking at it. The next is like a full service agreement. So this should be covering the majority of all of the components. Exclusions for aesthetics, you have somebody come in the elevator and they rip the, handrail off the inside of the elevator. That's not a normal wear and tear. That's not something that can be maintained. The cosmetic components are usually not covered. Movers come in, they come out, they bang on the inside of the cab. That's no fault of the elevator company because they didn't do maintenance. I would just add, above that and beyond, a lot of consultants push for a completely full service agreements, no carve outs. It's something we do for our clients, which is really a complete coverage. Includes penalties for non-performance, and performance driven results based on how many hours a month of maintenance they should do, including all the components that are covered. Items that are, let me just add items that are generally not covered, and I might have a slide for this. I don't remember. We'll talk about it real quick. Acts of God, floods, power surges, anything outside of the control of the elevator company, those are things that are just not going to be able to cover under a contract. Nobody's going to cover that. It's a unforeseen instance that happens. We can't do anything about it. So those are the basic types of contracts. Okay. How do we reduce downtime on the elevators? This is the big thing, right? We want elevators running. We want peace of mind. We want to know that they're gonna operate the way they need to do. So a lot of companies don't specify downtime in their terms of contract. A lot of companies will show up and say, "Oh, it's broken. We got to get you a proposal," and then you're harassing them for days and weeks. It's like, guys, fix my elevator. I'm even willing to pay for it. Just communicate with me. So it's a hard thing to understand. It's why we really press that when you're going to pick an elevator company, it's important for you to have comfortability. You have an account manager that that you can trust. I mean, I don't think this is specific to elevators. I think this is specific to any contractor that you're hiring across the board. You just want to have somebody pick up the phone when you call them, chasing down, sending email after email. It's very important. If you don't know your account manager with your elevator company, we say that that's a problem. And it's something, unfortunately, you might have to press to do with them to, develop that relationship. Or if you can't develop the relationship, maybe it's time to consider looking for, a different elevator company that's really going to meet the needs of the property. So the main thing on reducing downtime is having that relationship, being able to communicate, holding them accountable for what's in the contract that you signed with them. All right. Let's talk about overtime billing. So this is where most properties really, really run into an issue. We have a national account we work with. They've got 60 properties across the country, and just by us doing training with their staff, we've saved them over $35,000 annually just on overtime billing. So let me explain to how the contracts work and what the terms are. So number one item they'll have in the contract is no overtime included. So you call me on a Saturday at noon, I send a guy, I'm billing you full overtime rate because that guy came out on a Saturday. I never recommend this. It's an issue that you can deal with, can run up the costs exponentially. The meat in the middle is the premium portion of overtime. So what the premium portion of overtime means is if I call my elevator company on Tuesday at noon and they send a guy out and the work was all covered under the agreement, I don't pay anything. Okay, fair enough. If I call them on Saturday at noon, they send a guy, okay, the work would have been covered on a Tuesday. So I say, Mr. Elevator Company, I'm willing to pay you for the difference of premium time and regular time. So that time and a half, that half you end up paying because if I called you on Tuesday, you would come out and you would fix it. I'm going to cover the overtime portion of that service call. I think this is a fair balance with elevator companies, just to say, hey, I don't want you to not come, I'll pay the difference. The third term, which is overtime included, which means no additional billing for overtime, says, hey, I'm signing a contract with you. Maybe I'm going to pay a little bit extra premium on my monthly maintenance bill, but I want overtime included. And what that does is it helps communities manage their budgets. You say, okay, well, here's what I have budgeted for elevator maintenance. And there's no unknown now. Now I know if they come, maybe I'm paying a little bit more upfront, but I can control my budget, and that line item is not going to go up and down. So these are important terms to understand what's in your contract, what's not in your contract. If you're in a term contract right now, it's something to review and maybe review with your staff on placing service calls. Let's say I got 6 elevators in the property and I lose one on Saturday. You know what? I'm gonna hold that call till Monday. I don't want to pay an extra $800, $1,200, $1,500 for these guys to come out. I'm good with service. We can deal without one elevator for the weekend. I'm going to talk to my engineer. I'm going to say, hey, listen, if we don't absolutely need that elevator back up today, let's hold that call till Monday. And that's a huge cost savings that we can have for the property just by knowing and understanding those terms. So it's important to understand and know what terms you have within your contract. Here's your sample exclusions. This is what I talked about earlier. I thought I had a slide for this. cosmetic, construction, cabin closures, ceiling frames, door panels, mainline switches, breakers, anything that feeds the elevator is not the responsibility of the elevator company. That's the building main power supplying the elevator. So you might have an issue. We have issues where, we have power outages or one leg goes down because we run on three-phase power. The elevator company is going to bill you for those service calls because it's beyond their control. It's the power feeding the elevator. We talked about hydraulic elevators, and this is something to understand is that any unexposed hydraulic system, if you have oil pipes running underground or a jack that's in the ground that can't be resolved or maintained, the elevator company is not going to cover that. Another main issue to discuss and understand is that any ancillary tests that are involved with smoke or fire service reports, none of that is going to be covered by the elevator company. If you have to do a fire service test and the elevator company has to be on standby, they're going to send you a bill for them to come out and do that. They're not going to include that, in their service agreement. So any non-elevator items related, air conditioners, heaters, sump pumps in the pit, all of that is not going to be included within the elevator maintenance contract. Okay, let's talk about testing and compliance. So the state of Florida requires a third party to witness the annual test. So for elevators, we have two tests. We do an annual, what's called a Category 1 inspection. And so this test is required by code. And what they do is they're going to go in and they're going to test all the safety functions of the elevator. We want this test to happen. It's important that this test happens. What we're doing is testing that all of the safety functions of the elevator are functioning properly. And then you may get violations or deficiencies, as a result of that test. And that's something that needs to be resolved and be fixed so that we're compliant with the state. We don't have open violations. Okay, on a Category 5 test, so every 5 years, the difference in a Cat 1 and a Cat 5 is they bring a full load of weights. They're going to bring weight carts in, and whatever the rated capacity of the elevator is, 2,500 pounds, 3,000 pounds, they're going to put that weight in the elevator and they're going to test it to make sure that it works properly. 5-year tests can tend to cause damage and wreck the equipment. And, it's not the fault of the elevator company. They're testing it to make sure that it works. And we want this test to happen. And if something's going to fail, it's going to fail during that test. It's okay. It's not a problem. It's important that we do that test so that we make sure the elevators are safe, compliant, and functioning properly. So when that happens and we have repairs, we got to make those repairs. And now we know that the elevator is safe and willing to function. So in the state of Florida, they require a third party to witness this inspection. So you might get a bill from a testing company that says witnessed inspection. One of the things that I would warn and everyone to be leery of, let's say you have an elevator contractor and he says, hey, we got to do a Cat 1 test. And he goes, oh, okay, well, I can hire the witness for you. I'll hire the witness for you. That's convenient. It's easy. Great. You schedule everything. You handle it. To me, as a firm, our opinion, it's a little bit of a conflict of interest, okay? Because if they hire somebody that they're buddies with and they come out and perform the test and they say, okay, well, hey, the hoist cables are bad, I'm going to write them up. And the elevator contractor can say, hey, don't write those up. I cover those. I have to pay for those because it's covered under my agreement. There's a potential for a conflict of interest. And that's not what we want because we want safe, reliable elevators. Doesn't matter who's paying for it. If we have an issue that's unsafe for the public, it needs to be resolved. So I would recommend that you actually go out and hire your own witness. We can help you. We do witnessing. If you need a recommendation, we can give you a recommendation for witnessing. So I think it's important understanding of that. A lot of property managers get confused because they're like, well, I don't understand why I got two bills from two different companies for the test. The way it works is that the state requires that a third party come out, witness the elevator company actually perform the test so they performed it properly. And the third party is the one that's actually writing the violation, so there's no conflict of interest. So there might be some more questions on that. We're going to hold questions to the end. I'm happy to touch on anything that you guys have on that. Okay, this is my favorite thing to talk about when it comes to elevator maintenance contracts because elevator companies all have this clause in their contract that says, well, yeah, we cover these parts, but when they're obsolete, they're not covered. Okay. What does obsolete mean? There are certain elevator companies that actually define obsolescence in their contract, and I appreciate that. We know the terms, we know what we're dealing with. Most contracts are very ambiguous on what obsolescent means. Okay. In our opinion, our interpretation of years in the industry, obsolete means it cannot be repaired or replaced. Okay. Elevators companies try to pull this all the time. So let's say in your car, you've got a Duramax battery and the model number is 1234, right? You go to the shop, battery's dead. They say, oh, well, we don't have this model number anymore, but we have a direct replacement. It's a Duramax 2345. And so elevator companies will say, well, it's not the exact same part number, so it's obsolete. It's absolutely not the case. It's totally argumentative. You should never end up just paying a bill or falling for that. Argue obsolescence all the time. If you need a second opinion, there's any consulting firm or anybody can help you out with that. Obsolescent means I can't send this off to be replaced. I just had this issue at a property in Idaho Falls. The elevator comeback company came and said, well, your hydraulic valve is obsolete. So they sent a proposal for $18,000 to upgrade the valve to a new valve. And I said, listen, guys, your contract is clear. You say this valve is obsolete. The top hydraulic valve repair guy is an hour from this property. I want you guys to give us a price to repair the valve instead of replacing it. They came back to me and said, well, it's going to cost more to repair it. Well, I know Lyndon personally for 20 years. I called Lyndon and I said, Lyndon, how much do you want to repair this valve? He's like, I'll repair it for $600 and I'll have it back to the property tomorrow. So the client's going to pay $18,000 for a new valve because of an obsolescence clause. And it's just unacceptable. We don't have that. We're not going to deal with that. What's fair is fair. What's wrong is wrong. So if they come to you with obsolescence, it's important to understand exactly what they're claiming obsolescence, why they're claiming obsolescence. There are tens of thousands of dollars, and our goal is to make sure you spend good money. I don't want you to spend good money after bad. They were going to replace this valve and then end up replacing it in 2 years when they do a modernization. So if you hear obsolescence, you hear it going on, definitely, raise a red flag, ask all the pertinent questions that you can. Okay, major repairs. So everybody's run into this situation where you have a car shut down and the elevator company says, we got to get a repair team out here. We got to get a repair team out here. So we're going to talk about the different facets of staffing for elevator companies, but a major repair is determined when what we would deem a repair team. So elevator companies have specialists in each department. So your route mechanic that does the general maintenance is not a specialist when it comes to repairs. Okay, major repairs are bearings on a machine, hoist cables. It's the heavy duty equipment when we have to deal with this. So it's important when you get a proposal for a major repair to understand what's happening. These are going to be costly. They're going to be extended downtime. It's important to hold these contractors accountable. We generally what ends up happening, and it's just wrong. It's not the right way to do it. Elevator contractor will tell you, oh, we got to wait for parts. 9 times out of 10, they're not waiting for parts. They're waiting for their schedule to clear up to get a team there. And that's fine if you don't have room in your backlog in your schedule. Just communicate it with me. Be honest with me. We had a client, a couple months ago. The elevator company told them, well, it's going to take us 3 weeks to get hoist cables. And I gave him 3 suppliers that would have hoist cables on site the next day. So it's just not acceptable. Don't play games with us. Just be honest with us. We're in a business partnership together. So just tell me the truth. You don't have a team. You don't have a team. What can we do to speed up the process? When you get these major repairs, it's very important to price check. You're kind of tied into using this contractor because you're in contract with them for the repairs. But if you ever need a second opinion, definitely price it out. Call a consulting firm such as us. We're happy to price check it, give an understanding of the scope of work. Make sure that they're not just telling you something that's crazy. We had a problem in Tampa about 6 months ago. They got a $280,000 proposal from their elevator company because of water damage. We surveyed the job, disputed what was damaged, gave them the scope of work, what was damaged. And they agreed with us with that scope of work, and it ended up costing $6,000. So they were going to spend $280,000 based on the recommendation of the elevator company because you just don't know what you know. You're trusting them to tell you what they need, but what they actually needed was only about $6,000 in repairs. So be mindful of this. Anytime you're about to cut a check for or sign a proposal for a big proposal, really make sure and understand what's going on with that work. Tips when placing service calls, and we can help you guys with this. Take note of when the call was placed. We talked about overtime. So if overtime's not included and you place a service call at 9 a.m. and they don't show up till 6 p.m. that night, that's not a bill you should be paying just because they didn't respond in time. Okay. And within our service agreement, we have stipulated response times. Understanding when the call was placed, when we can do holdovers, have your engineer communicate with the tech that comes on site, understand what service was done. A lot of times the technicians are a lot more honest than maybe your repair supervisor or your account manager. You get a lot of information from the techs when they come out. They tell you exactly what happened. If maybe the fault is maybe with the company, they messed something up and we're fixing this, or if it was a legitimate issue. So I would say it's important that you guys get to know your tech, communicate with him, understanding what we're doing when we're placing a service call and what that looks like. Okay, entrapments. When we have an entrapment in the building, what do we do? Okay. Immediately call the elevator company, have your engineer go, somebody stuck in the elevator, communicate with them in the elevator. They're likely going to push the button inside the elevator. Emergency call is going to be placed. They're going to be contacted. Make sure that that person is safe. If they're not safe, immediately call 911. If they're having a medical emergency or something, don't wait for the elevator company. The fire department will be able to get them out and get them out of the elevator. Entrapments, they don't happen that often, but when they do, it's important that staff is trained and understands what we need to do to make sure that the public is safe. This is a lot of information, and I'm going to kind of go through it quick and hit the highlights for you guys. The terms of these elevator maintenance contracts are difficult, tricky. They make it difficult on purpose so you don't understand. So, number one, most elevator contracts are going to ask you for a 5-year commitment. Okay. The reason why they ask for a 5-year commitment is because they're covering parts, they're doing maintenance, it's their job to keep the elevator running. Say you hire me to take over your property, and I come in and I say, listen, I'm gonna replace hoist cables. It's included in the contract. And in month 2, I lose 2 sets of hoist cables, and I spend, $30,000-$40,000 replacing those hoist cables. Okay. If I don't have a 5-year agreement, well, I have no way to recoup the money that I invested, because as your company maintaining it, I'm going to invest money in the elevators so that I maintain them. And hopefully I'm going to recoup that by providing good maintenance, reducing service calls, proactively replacing parts so it's not an issue. If December rolls around and the board changes and the new board hates the old board and they want to undo everything the old board did, and they say, well, I don't like this elevator company because the previous board hired them, we'll cancel this contract. Well, if you just have a 30-day out, as the elevator contractor, now I'm out all that money, I get kicked out, I didn't do anything wrong. Okay. So it's important to understand these 5-year terms. What we recommend in these terms is a performance clause, which we could help anybody write for any contract that they have. It basically says, hey, we have a 5-year contract, but if you fail to perform, you have 30 days to cure. And then after 30 days, if you don't cure, we can seek a new contractor. So it's important to understand that. Cancellation terms on these contracts, there's a big misnomer because, let's say you have an elevator company, you got 3 years left on a contract, you're totally dissatisfied with them, they don't show up, they don't respond. They're holding us hostage. You can break that contract, okay? And even if you break that contract and you're in breach, you don't owe them the balance of the contract. You only will owe them the profit portion of the balance of the contract. So let's say you owed them $5,000 on the contract. Typically, it's only a 30% number of that. And sometimes the pain of a property is so much, it's like, I don't care, I'll pay it. Let's get them out of here. Let's get somebody new in here. It is what it is. The third thing on those contracts for the 5-year contract terms is look at that auto renewal. I would recommend everybody today after this webinar, go find your elevator maintenance agreement. And likely in the contract terms, it's going to say 5-year contract ending on X date, auto renews unless a cancellation notice is sent in 90 days prior to renewal. So I would encourage everybody to look at their contract, put it on your calendar, 90 days from when that contract is going to renew to send in the cancellation notice. Whether you want to renew with them or not, maybe you love them and you want to renew with them, that's great. It's a negotiation tactic. You've now broke the cycle of the auto renewal, and now you have an opportunity to bid it out if you want to bid it out, or just renegotiate with the current contractor. So it's important to know these terms in these agreements. They lock you in, they tie you up. It's a tough situation to deal with. We help people get out of contracts when they need. Any consultant or firm like ours would be able to help you negotiate on your behalf. What if I covered that? Okay. Yep. Okay. I didn't even read this. I just covered it all because I already know. Okay. Understanding
Like a true
service provider.
professional.
Understanding service providers. Okay. Let's talk about elevator companies. You probably heard this term OEM. Okay. It stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. Okay. So there are hundreds of elevator companies across the country. There's 4 what we call the majors OEMs. So there's Thyssen, Otis, Schindler, Kone. I threw Fujitec in here because they're an OEM too, and they're kind of up and coming. So what we mean by original equipment manufacturer is Otis comes to you, you're building a building, and Otis says, I'm going to sign a contract with you. I'm going to install an elevator. But the elevator they're going to install is their own equipment. Otis built the elevator, they engineered it, they maintain it, they support it, they sell parts for it, and you're going to put in that equipment. Only Otis manufactures that. Every other company in the future, if they want to work on that elevator, or they have to replace a part, they have to then go back to Otis. Okay. So it's not an independent manufacturer. You're going to a competitor that manufactures and maintains equipment. So Otis may maintain, any piece of equipment. They may maintain Thyssen equipment or Kone equipment. But when push comes to shove and you have a problem, if you have a software issue or you have any kind of thing going on, you have to go back to Otis and buy parts from them, which can cause some complications. I'm not saying that these guys are bad companies. I'm not saying that they have bad products. I'm just saying that there's opportunities that become problems. So when you have an elevator company like Otis, Thyssen, Schindler, Kone, and they have 2 revenue streams. They have the maintenance revenue stream, actually 3. They have the new installation revenue stream where they sold you the elevator. They have the maintenance revenue stream where they maintain it, and then they have a parts revenue stream. So what they end up doing, and we just had an issue with this with Schindler. We had a property, the elevators were only 10 years old, and Schindler discontinued the product. They no longer supported it. We couldn't get boards, we couldn't get parts. The association had to do a modernization because Schindler no longer supported it. So it's a repetitive cycle for them where they upgrade their platform, they discontinue old products, and then they kind of force people to modernize. Is it intentional? I think parts of it. I don't think it's all intentional. I don't want to make them seem like they're bad companies. I think they're just doing what in their business model makes sense. On the flip side of that, you have independent elevator companies. So there is a plethora of great manufacturers that manufacture equipment across the world, whether it be controllers, machines, et cetera, or whatever. So you may have a family-owned business that has an elevator company and they buy open source equipment. And what I mean by open source is the manufacturer's not affiliated with a maintenance company, right? They just sell the product. All we do is manufacture elevator equipment and we'll sell it to anybody. They'll sell it to Otis, they'll sell it to an independent company. Okay. Those are kind of the 2 difference in understanding, the majors versus the independent companies. There's pros and cons to each. The majors are really good at, say, high rise, high speed elevators. Their equipment is built for that, designed for that. The independents are kind of better on the personal relationship, the one-on-one. They're typically family-owned businesses. They're not owned by an equity fund. You can typically have a better relationship with them versus maybe an OEM that turns over staff pretty quickly. So that's kind of the individually owned versus sort of the corporatized, America. So the other thing I want to talk about is staffing. Okay, so the state of Florida requires all elevator mechanics to be licensed through the state. They have to go get their CC with the state. They have to take a test. They have to understand that they're qualified. So there's a lot of conversation about union versus non-union. Okay. The unions have been around forever. I mean, IUC in New York is local one. It was the first, local union out of New York. It's not that a non-union shop doesn't have the accreditations that a union shop has. They both provide schooling. Some non-union shops maybe are not as proficient in the education that they would have, for their staff. So there's independent. So CET accreditation is a certified elevator technician, is a school and a program that the elevator staff will go through. Typically, it's a 4-year program. Same thing with the union is a 4-year program. In the state of Florida, you're fortunate. These guys have to be licensed. Some are better than others. I've had union mechanics that didn't know how to tie their shoes. So it's not that the union mechanics are always, 100% better. I had a union shop when I owned my company. It's one half dozen the other. I think it's more about understanding your company, how they operate, what they do, what kind of training they have for their staff. I put this in here because we talked about this earlier. So basically, these are the different staffing roles for elevator contractors. You have your maintenance mechanic, which is your everyday mechanic. We call it a route mechanic. He's the one that's going to come do service. When you have a service call, he's going to be the one that's going to come to fix the elevator. If he can't fix it, maybe because it's a repair issue, then you're going to have a repair mechanic that's going to come maybe with an helper. Okay, so these guys here, the repair mechanic, the mod mechanic, new installation mechanic, they kind of specialize in those fields, and they typically work in teams where they're going to have a helper with them. So a repair mechanic's going to have a helper, a mod, new installation. And let's say the route mechanic can't fix it, but it's a complex electrical problem, and can't diagnose it. They're going to call what's called an adjuster or supervisor. And so that's the guy that's kind of over those guys and typically has a lot more experience, a lot more understanding. So if you hear your company say, oh, we have to get an adjuster out there, we have to get an adjuster out there, that means that's a guy that, has more technical knowledge than just the regular route mechanic. More experience is going to be able to diagnose the problem. Okay, that's kind of it for maintenance. Maintenance contracts. I'm gonna hold time for Q&A at the end so we can get through that. I want to run through modernization, and I want to make sure I leave time for questions. So we'll kind of get through this quickly. If any of you have done an elevator modernization, you know the challenges, the headaches, the struggle with it. So just kind of want to go through a 30,000-foot view, understanding what that process looks like, what it entails, what it means, so you understand. So what is a modernization? So a modernization is typically after 20 to 25 years of the life of the elevator, we need to upgrade the equipment, okay? And we'll talk about this in a minute, what that actually means. But basically, the equipment is outused its last full life, and it's either not been maintained properly, or it's become obsolete, or it's just deteriorated to a point to where we need to upgrade it. Oh, this is my favorite slide ever. We get this all the time. So an elevator contractor walks in your door and says, we can't fix it, we can't service it, you have to modernize. Okay, that's generally never the case. It's never the case. They're pressuring you to sign a huge proposal to upgrade the equipment. So, if that comes across, definitely seek some consulting help to understanding, hey, what actually am I dealing with? You telling me they're holding me hostage. They say they're not going to fix the elevator unless I modernize. Okay, well, why is the issue and what does that actually mean? Okay, when do you truly have to modernize? When the equipment is obsolete. We can't get parts. We can't get the parts repaired. They no longer exist. The manufacturer is out of business. Typically, and that's really on the controller piece, which is the electronics of the elevator. Typically, most elevator machines, which are the moving parts, the mechanical piece of it, can generally always be repaired. There's specialty repair companies all through the country that are really good at this thing. Typically, what happens is the elevator controller, which is like the brain, it's the computer that runs the elevator. Typically, it's just outdated, can't be repaired, software can't be fixed, it's corrupt. That happens. Second item is when major code changes happen. And we have some code changes coming in the state of Florida over the next few years, which I'm going to talk about, that are going to require modernization across the board for a lot of devices. Um, the third item is when major changes in the building happen. Listen, we're putting money into the property. We want to do a roof extension and do a roof deck, or we want to redo the lobby and we're going to spend this money. We have money allocated to do this. Typically, that may be a time to modernize. And lastly, it's just when the equipment's deteriorated, where repairing is just not a viable solution. When it's going to cost you more to repair it than it's going to cost you to modernize, it's time to look at modernization. Okay, what's involved in a modernization? Okay, the term modernization is not a standard. Okay, it could be, we changed the machine. Oh, we modernized the machine. So every time you look into a modernization, it's important to understand apples to apples. Your elevator company says, I got to modernize. I go out and I get 4 quotes from other companies. Likely, those contracts are going to be across the spectrum. Oh, we're replacing this, we're retaining this, we're going to replace this, do that. Would definitely recommend hiring a consultant to write a cohesive scope of work. From a non-biased perspective, they looked at the equipment and they said, okay, hey, here's our options to retain this equipment. We need to replace this equipment. We can upgrade this, or we'll give you an option to retain based on cost. You want to make your money go as far as you can go. So depending on the type of equipment, depending on the age of the equipment, when it comes to modernization, it's not all going to be created equal. It's going to be a specified scope really for each situation. So it's important to remember, important to understand. You tell 2 companies, give me a price for modernization, you're not getting the same scope of work. It's very unlikely that they will match apples for apples. So understanding that is important. How to plan for modernization. Like I said, we recommend engaging a consultant. You have an expert in your wheelhouse that's non-biased, that's looking out for your protection. Obtain multiple bids. Make sure the proposals are apple to apples. Go get references. Typically the lowest price doesn't mean you have the best price. You generally get what you pay for a lot of times. So get your references on the company, understanding what's going on, verify the quality of the equipment that they're going to install. Make sure you're not getting something, that's discounted because it's overseas or not quality. And then I would say really understand your maintenance contract. Lead times for equipment. People think modernization, I'm going to modernize, they're going to start tomorrow. I mean, lead times for equipment are generally about 20 weeks right now. So understanding if you're going to start a modernization process, by the time you want to start, you're really looking 8 months down the road from when you actually engage. So it's not an off-the-shelf thing that's just going to happen. If we've got a major project, we're getting into $3.5–4 million, totally recommend getting a bond. Protect yourself as much as possible. We write in our contract liquidated damages. If the contractor says, hey, it's going to take, 15 weeks to do this one elevator, well, it should take 15 weeks, especially when you have a project that's ranging over multiple years, which we have. We write liquidated damages in our contract. We ask them for a schedule in the bid. We ask them for a fair schedule, and for every day they go over that project, it's a $500 day penalty and damages. They need incentive to make sure they finish the project on time. If they don't, then they can just drag it out forever and hold you hostage. Installation metrics. We put in our contract to performance metrics, making sure that the car speeds are right, the door open, door close speeds are right, door pressure, everything in regards to the performance. Because why do we want to spend $3 million on a modernization and then they do a shoddy job installing it? And now I'm going to have more problems than I had when we started. So understanding, making sure that not only you got the right parts and products, but that the installation was done to a quality. Because the point of upgrading the equipment is now we have good equipment for the next 25 years. So it's understanding that your terms and conditions, understanding your legal terms, understanding your billing terms. If you sign a modernization and the company says, I want 50% down, I lose my mind. Okay. It may be a year before they start the actual project, let alone they're on 30-day net terms from when the equipment ships. So if the equipment doesn't ship for 8 months and you're doing a $4 million project, you give them $2 million. They're earning interest on your money, $2 million for 8 months. We never allow that We do progress terms, understanding how much money they need. We fund the project as it goes. You give them $2 million and all of a sudden that company goes out of business. What do you have? Okay. So we make sure that we pay for the work as it's completed. So understanding those billing terms, if anybody has an issue with that, we're happy to help with that. So here's an overview on the steps on the process. So understanding that, this is the overall process. You determine your scope of work. There's going to be work by owner items that are going to need to be done, whether it be fire alarms, air conditioning, waterproofing in the pit, sump pumps. So when we do a modernization, you have the elevator work, but there's generally ancillary work by owner that needs to be done in the property to bring it up to code. Got to understand that going in the process. You think you signed a contract to do a modernization and they didn't tell you that you had work by owner, and now we got an extra $300,000 we didn't budget for because we have to upgrade facilities. It's important to know that and understand that. Obtain multiple bids, level those bids, understanding those terms, agree on your billing terms, you sign a contract. You're going to get submittals, and elevator companies love to just throw submittals at you. So you're going to get cab drawings, you're going to get machine drawings, you're going to get engineering, you're going to get car station drawings, and they're going to say, oh, you need you to approve these. Well, you don't know what you're approving. Okay, sit down with them, hire a consultant, understand what we're actually approving. Because if you sign off on that submittal and when it shows up and it's stainless steel instead of bronze, they're going to go back to your signature and say, well, you approved it. Here's a change order. We'll fix it, but here's a change order. So understanding that process, having all your ducks in a row, knowing what you're dealing with, understanding lead times, whether you use a consultant or not. The start of the job, the kickoff meeting is so important, especially as a manager. You guys are getting all of the hate emails from all the tenants. It's important where the guys park, where they store material, where they go to the bathroom bag, how they check in and check out of the building. Or do we have floors that are, they have to be extra quiet on, can't work on certain times. Scheduling that, understanding that. If you have elder tenants that are in during a modernization, have that schedule. Maybe they want to move out for 2 months, live with some family. So because the elevator's not in service, these are all important factors to consider, understand. Why we recommend hiring a consultant, because the elevator companies don't always walk you through all of those understandings. Completion, final testing. This is the last thing I would say on this. Just because the elevator passed with the jurisdiction doesn't mean that the elevator was installed properly. Okay, we run into this all the time. The jurisdiction is only testing the safety functions. Okay, it's important that you get a quality control test. Make sure you got what you paid for. So there's two facets of that: passing with the jurisdiction and then getting a punch list to make sure that the elevator company did what they were supposed to do. So that's I kind of flew through that. I know that's a lot of information, but I know that we typically in these have a lot of time, a lot of questions. So I wanted to save time for questions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lucas. That was very informative. Wow. And it sounds like it's certainly smart to have a partnership with someone like you and your firm. That was very insightful. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Yes, we do have questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start at the top of the chat. You may or may not have already answered these, but we're going to go through them. So the first question is, are elevator vendors required to maintain a repair log? It goes on to say we've had 4 major repairs this year, but the vendor doesn't enter anything into our log. So we have no history of what was done or when it was completed. We have asked for this information, but they aren't interested in providing it.
Yeah, so they're required by code to have a maintenance control program, and they're required to have a log of that. So they are technically in violation of code. And I would say if they were repairs that you contracted them or they paid for, we definitely want to get a log with that. What I would do is go to that elevator company and ask for a service call history for maybe the last 12 months. And typically all elevator companies log their dispatching. So if you ask for that service call history log, it should be notated in that log within their internal system if it's not on site. The other thing that we talked about is, we used to always have paper tickets. The mechanic would come in, he would sign a time ticket. It's best to train your on-site staff if you can. Communicate with them when the guys are there, when they leave. Hey, what work did you do? What was accomplished? And if you have to make your own log, I encourage, unfortunately, you shouldn't have to do this, but it's important to keep internal documentation and notes. And if you need some help getting to the elevator contractor, we have some leverage over them. So we end up doing that a lot just to try to figure out what exactly is going on.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. And so this next question came in during the conversation about the Category 1 and Category 5 inspection. So she writes, who does the actual inspection? Our elevator servicer? Question mark.
So the elevator company actually performs the inspection. So what they do is they go in, for example, they're going to kick the governor over, set the safeties, make sure that they work. They get inside the shaftway, they test the final limits, the bottom limits. The witness company watches them perform that. Okay. And as they watch them perform that, if something fails or something needs to be repaired, the witness company is writing the deficiencies and then filing that with the state.
Okay. Very good. On to the next. It says, if you have an elevator service company, can you get a bid from someone else to do that work instead of your elevator servicer?
Okay, so you got to read your contract here because there's a lot of different language in contracts. So a lot of companies will say for like a major repair, we get right of first refusal. So I give you a repair to repair a machine, and you say, well, this is too much. I'm going to bid it out. And then you have X company give you a price that's maybe 20% less. Then they'll have right of first refusal to match that price, or then you hire the other company. The problem with hiring and this is the problem that we've run into that I've seen in the past. The problem is that let's say I've got X elevator company on service, and then we have to do a major repair, and their price is too high. So I go to Y elevator company and I hire them. Okay, and Y company does the work. What you want to do is have X company come inspect the work that they did and sign off on it. Okay, I had Y company do it. X company, I'm on service with you. Come inspect this work. Give me the okay that everything was done properly. If you want things changed or it wasn't done to your standard, do that. Because what happens is you get into this finger pointing, he said, she said. Well, you hired Y company. That's why it's broken. It wasn't done right. I got to bill you for this because you didn't use me to do it. So I don't recommend it ever. If you're on contract with somebody, if it's a major repair, that's typically an opportunity for you to maybe rebid out the maintenance contract or get another contractor in there at that point. Or hire a consultant like us, and we'll negotiate that with them and make sure that everything's on the up and up. Just because we have the understanding, and so I think that maybe answers it.
I think you're right. I mean, I'm leaving that up to you, of course. But yeah, and that I think that just goes to I really value what you said earlier. What's fair is fair and what's wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
So having a consulting firm, it seems like is a very valuable resource. So thanks for answering that question. This next question is about entrapment, which, I'm like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, like, is that really only in like movies? But, real life. So the question is regarding entrapment, can only the fire department or elevator company help with that? Like, who is the person to come
Okay.
and take care of that?
This is a great question. Okay. And as a property manager, as a building engineer, never, ever, ever try and get somebody out of the elevator. Okay. A lot of your building engineers, they have an elevator key. They maybe have keys to the elevator. Oh, we're waiting on the company. It's going to be too long. I'll just pop the doors. I'll get them out. Okay. The majority of fatal accidents have happened when somebody is trying to climb out of the elevator and the elevator is not secured properly and the elevator shifts. Okay. I have videos and videos and videos of people dying trying to get out of the elevator. When you're entrapped in the elevator and you don't have a medical emergency, that person is as safe as they can be. They're not going anywhere. That elevator's not going to do anything. It's not going to drop. It's not going to fall. Maybe it stopped abruptly and they're scared. I understand that they're scared. People have phobias of elevators. But the safest place you can be is entrapped in that elevator and wait for proper authorized personnel that know what they're doing, know how to secure the elevator. I can't stress that enough. Just from a safety perspective and a liability perspective, I get it. I've dealt with building engineers and superintendents for 25 years, and they're like, I know what you're doing. I've seen you do it. I can get them out. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Can't stress it enough. Don't recommend it. If it's so bad, the elevator company is not going to be there for an hour and a half, just call the fire department. That maybe $1,000 repair that we're going to have from the fire department pales into comparison the risk and the damage that we could have for somebody getting injured.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Next question is, we are caught up in an upgrade problem where the machines aren't communicating with our 20-year-old controllers. They're telling us full MOD is needed, but now they have switched up proposed controller. Can you comment on controllers?
I'd have to have more detail on that specifically. And I'm happy for you to reach out. We could talk about it. I mean, typically what happens is, so it's a little confusing on how you worded that, and maybe that's what they told you, but I'm not sure. So basically, you have the elevator controller that communicates with the machine. And you also have the elevator controller, which communicates a selector in the shaftway. So they talk to one another. So the machine knows how many revolutions the controller knows how many revolutions the machine is doing. It measures that and also communicates within the shaftway. So sometimes we do have communication problems. Typically, that's going to end up being from a bad board in the controller or, a wiring problem or something else going on. I'd have to know what type of equipment it is and what kind of issues are going on there. It's very possible, the equipment's deteriorated or it's obsolete, needs to be upgraded, or maybe they're just not diagnosing the problem correctly, and their solution is we can't fix it, so replace it.
Which froze?
She froze?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, we got you now.
We can hear you. Yeah.
I'm froze?
Yes.
Yeah, you're froze.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm back. You can hear me. Okay,
Yeah.
as long as you can hear me. Okay, great. So next question. The next question is on modernization. It says we just completed a modernization project and we did an annual inspection, which showed the phone in the elevator is not working. I'm asking the company if this should have not been detected when the inspection of work that they did was done. Is my question accurate?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Oh, okay. So the phone definitely worked when they did the turnover for the modernization. Phones are always a bane of everybody's existence. Depending on what we have now, and there's a new code now, which I don't know how recently the modernization was done, but the new code dictates that you have video and audio communication. We've had audio communication for years and years and years, and finally somebody said, well, what if the person in the elevator is deaf? What are they supposed to do? So they've changed the code now. So when we modernize elevators, you have to have audio and visual communication. And that either is going to run off of Wi-Fi or it's going to run off of cellular. And there's just problems that we have with that from time to time. So it's typically usually not an elevator company issue because you have a new phone in that elevator. It's usually a connection issue. And there are ways around that. If we need to put an additional antenna inside the shaftway, mount it, communicate, I would go back to the elevator company and just say, hey, well, what is actually the problem with the phone? But I've had buildings, we turned over the phone, it worked one day, and the next day you go there and it's not working. So it's definitely, I would cut them a little slack there. They're not trying to pull one over on you for sure.
Okay, very good. Last question. It's an AI question.
Nice.
So it says, will AI be used in the process of diagnostics?
It's already being used. It's already being used. There's a couple guys, I'm going to get on a tangent here for a second, but, there's been a steady decline of talent in the industry. 40, 50 years ago, we had old timers that just knew the elevators. And the technology curve that's come with elevators is we've gotten away from relay logic systems down into solid state, software driven based systems. And with that, you can't troubleshoot that circuit the same way. And so there's a lot of diagnostic tools that they rely on. So the computer will tell you, hey, here's my problem. It's code 1, 2, 3. It's the same thing with cars, right? You work on a Chevelle from 1970, there's a finite number of parts you could diagnose. You try and work on a new Camaro today, you got to have a computer, you got to dig into all these things. So it's kind of like that with elevators. There are a couple firms that have a really great idea, which is interesting to me, is they're compiling all this data into a system, and elevator companies are paying a subscription for diagnosis data. They're using AI to search and sort through all of that stuff. I mean, AI is only going to increase across the board. The technology is going to change. It's going to be more interesting when they start incorporating AI into the elevators to better handle traffic patterns and understanding, uptime and downtime and where things, elevators should be traveling. But we're already using it now. I mean, I use it if I have an issue where it's a controller I'm not familiar with. I'll see what I'm going to find in ChatGPT before I start making calls to figure out what I need to know. So it's definitely on the horizon. I mean, it's across the board in every industry.
I agree. It's a good tool. It's a good tool. That concludes our questions.
Awesome.
That concludes our questions. Lucas, it was a pleasure to be a part of this presentation with you. Certainly learned a lot. I find this class to be very valuable, so I think it's a great class for the CAMs. So great work to you and your team for creating this for us. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, Peggy.
Yes, hi, Lucas. There was a lot of information. I apologize for my technical difficulties, but there was one more question here that I thought was really valuable towards the end. It says, what are some of the new codes that are coming out? Are you aware of anything you can comment on about that?
Yeah, actually, I didn't have a slide in that, and let me, if we have just a minute, I can pull this up. Let me just go here. I think I have it up. Projects. So there's a major code change coming in 2028. Okay. And what it is, it requires all traction elevators to have a secondary brake. So what I showed in the presentation, you have your safeties that go in the down direction. Okay, if the car travels in the down direction too quickly. Most traction elevators, if they're going to crash, they crash up. They don't crash down. People always think I'm going to fall, in the elevator, but they actually crash up, not down. Okay, so the code changed around 2002, 2005, and so you have a main brake on the machine, and what it does is it requires a secondary brake. It's like an emergency brake. If your brakes fail, you can pull the emergency brake. So every traction elevator that doesn't have a secondary brake by the end of 2028 is going to require to retrofit or modernize to add a secondary brake. So this is the main code change that is on the horizon coming. So we can help you with that. If you guys go to our website, we have a free compliance check where you can take a look and give us some information, and we'll tell you whether you're compliant or not. There's another code change that was due in August of this year. It's called door lock monitoring. I think that most people have got that done. You're going to find out when you do your inspection next year if you haven't got that done. But on either one of those fronts, those are the two main things coming up. If you have any questions on that, you can feel free to reach out to us and we can help you with that.
I'm placing the link for that review, for the compliance review, in the chat for everybody.
Okay, great. We are recording the Q&A. There were a few questions in chat, so I'm trying to quickly do a screenshot, and then we will get those over to you, Lucas, to answer in a private email, or you will have the list you can answer to everybody in the group, however you like to do it. But let me say thank you again, Damaris, for setting it up. Lucas, for putting on a great presentation, very informative. Again, a lot of good comments, saying it was great information. Thank you, Siobhan, for your time preparing for this as well. And again, thank you for your patience. And I want to thank the board members and the CAMs for taking the time to join us today. I want to tell you about some upcoming webinars. We have December 4th, one that everyone should be interested in, especially if you know there's new board members coming in. It's called Covenant Enforcement. It's going to be put on by K. Bender Rembaum, attorney firm down here. and that will be from 11 to 12:30. December 9th, I have Sherwin-Williams coming in with their update on their products and so on for painting and practices. And then on December 16th, anyone that did not get their 2025 legal update in, this is an outstanding time to get that class and get your certificate for that. There's also a trade show in South Florida called the Cooperators Show on December 11th. Most of my sponsors will be there. If you want to get more information or reach out to them and see if they're there, make an appointment, go by their booth and spend time with them getting your information updated. Now, at the Cooperators Show from 8 to 12 noon, Jane Boland, she's an attorney that will be giving a board certification class for all of the board members that attend. So it's free. All these things I'm telling you about are free. So please take advantage of it and keep yourself in compliance. All right. I want to say also, if you have a topic that you want to hear about, please send me an email. And past that, happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much pumpkin pie. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Peggy.
Bye, Peggy. Thank you.